in plenty different ways, which I'm gonna explain during doing it. Anyway, here we go. I'm gonna select EB ending code, start not here, okay. Wrong game mode. Let's go again. Right, here we go. Going for EB ending code in the tournament mode. Selecting the boot training course, first check of the game. And like I said, there's a big skip here, which I'm gonna explain before I go into details about like the basic mechanics of this game, because this takes up all of my attention. So I'm gonna break a bit here. Try to stick to this wall right here, which tends to go wrong because it's very easy to slip off to either side. So I'm just gonna try again. Alright, now I'm gonna climb up the wall and then I'm gonna try to get a good launch out of bounds so I actually make it over the void. Because this game has what we call an out of bounds death timer, which basically says if I spend more than 3 seconds out of bounds, my pod is automatically gonna blow up. So let's hope it works out, which it did. So I'm gonna try to do this 3 times and hopefully not trigger the out of bounds death timer. Like I said, if I spend more than 3 seconds out of bounds, the game will just blow me up. Even if I would use cheats and invincibility, the game would just crash my pod mid-air and I would respawn where I started. This looks pretty good. Hopefully it's gonna work again. Yes, very nice. And one more time. And I slipped off. Like I said, it happens all the time. I'm not surprised it does now. Ah, come on. One more time. Yeah, like you see, this is very finicky. Here we go. Okay, now I just need to get the good launch. And then we're good. Oh, this doesn't look very good. Nope. So I didn't gain enough height here. So I didn't make it over the wall. And now it's actually getting critical because the AI already overtook me and I need to win this race because this is 100%. So let's hope it works on the second try here. Okay, I hope this works. I might die out of bounds and then I have to restart this race. Okay, it works. Ooh, that was close. But we're out of here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the junkyard and I'm looking to upgrade my top speed part, which is very essential in going fast. Right now I'm still on the base upgrade, so I don't have anything. And I'm using the junkyard to kind of leapfrog my way into having very good upgrades very early on already. So right now I bought a plug 3, which is in a damaged condition. However, after this race, it will be completely repaired. And I bought it in a damaged condition, which means I only paid the equivalent value for it that it has regarding to its health. So if it has like 50% health, I only pay 50% the price, which means after this race it's going to be worth more than I bought it for. And since I'm going to be trading it in 1-for-1 in value after this race for another part, I'm essentially earning money by repairing this part. And I'm going to be able to afford an even better part after this. And this is how I'm going to be able to afford the very best top speed upgrade after already 4 or 5 races. And it's going to be capping out my top speed. So one thing I should mention is the base speed, disregarding boosting, in this game for every pod is the same. It's going to be capped at 650. Oh, that's very good. That's really good RNG. So once I have the best upgrade, my base speed will be kept at 650. And it doesn't matter which pod I'm using, it's the same cap for every pod. The only difference is the added speed while boosting. So the pod I'm using right now only gains about 190 speed units while boosting. However, after this trick I'm going to switch to a pod that gains 360 speed units while boosting, so it's going to be much faster. Now there's also some time where I can explain the basic mechanics. So what you've seen me do a lot so far and what I've talked about a bit is boosting. So once you see at the bottom right the little dot, once you see that turn red, I'm boosting. And that essentially just means I'm gaining extra speed while I'm boosting. Now, to boost, I need to use a resource called heat, and the heat is the little bar that fills up at the bottom right. Now, one very important thing in this game is to never reach that, let that bar reach 0, because if you do, you're essentially wasting your cooling resource. So, what that means is you spend time not boosting that you could have spent boosting, therefore essentially wasting time that you cannot make up. So it's what we call underheating, and I want to avoid that at any cost. There's going to be some parts on some tricks where I cannot avoid it, but for the most part I'm going to look to never let that heat bar reach 0, never let it be empty. Yeah, so much for boosting. Another thing in this game is, contrary to what many people believe when they first start to try to go fast in this game, is the most important thing for going fast is actually not holding very long boosts or boosting very often. Even though making your boost as long as possible is technically optimal, the most important thing in this game is actually minimizing the distance that you travel. So what that means is you want to take as tight lines as you can through every corner. So a good analogy I have for this is if you imagine a red thread that spans through the entire track and touches every apex. That is the optimal line to take. And that is very different to conventional racing lines for other racing games you might know of, where usually you want to approach the turn from a right angle, cut to the apex and exit it in a right angle to conserve speed. But you don't need to do this in this game because you do not lose any speed for cornering. So the simple act of turning doesn't lose you any speed, which means the only thing you need to pay attention to in corners is that you take them as tight as possible, like I just said. So after this trick I'm gonna go to the junket again and hopefully get a plug 8, which will be capping out, almost be capping out the next spot I'm using on top speed. So I'm gonna be going pretty fast already. So this was Bedo's Wild Ride, and now I'm going to be switching to the track favorite of this track, which is Alda Bedo. But first I'm going to check the junkyard. I would like to buy this, and I can afford it. That's actually really good. So now I even have the very best top speed upgrade, which means I don't need to go to the shop later when I switch pot again. Because this guy right here, Alda Bedo, would have been kept out with a lower level top speed upgrade already, but since I have the very best top speed upgrade now, any pod I'm going to choose later on will be kept out on speed as well, which will save me some time down the road. The only problem is I couldn't afford any cooling now, because the top speed upgrade was very expensive. So after this track I need to go to the junkyard again to buy cooling. But once I got the cooling upgrade, I'm basically done with the junkyard. And I'm essentially on unlimited power. Because top speed and cooling is really the only important things to enable me to go really fast. Even though acceleration and turning do help, they're not that important. And I'm gonna get some acceleration and turning later on. But I'm not gonna be getting them from the junkyard, I'm just gonna buy them from the normal shop. Which doesn't involve any RNG. Oh, well, that's the first crash of the run. So, it can happen pretty easily. Crashing in this game is very common. Although that one in particular was pretty avoidable. Like I said, it's very common. If you touch a wall in the wrong way, you instantly blow up. And the tracks, especially later on, become quite mean. There are a lot of hazards on the track and a lot of very tight and hard to take corners. Although this track in particular I'm on right now is actually considered probably the easiest track in the game. So it's kind of unlucky that I actually crashed here, but hey, it happens. Another thing that has to be said about this pod right here, compared to the one I used before, is that this pod actually has atrocious handling and actually also very bad acceleration and repair. Which means, first of all, it's pretty difficult to maneuver him through the track well. And on top of that, any mistake you make is very punishing because of the bad acceleration and also the bad repair. So if I ever get red engines, it's almost impossible for me to actually repair them back up without losing a huge amount of time. And if I ever lose speed by bonking, it will also take some time to build that speed back up again. And yeah, touching on the topic of speed, the longer I go without braking or letting go of thrust, the more my speed builds up, and it goes towards 650 without boosting, like I said before. It starts to close in on that, and it keeps building up. So if I ever bonk and I lose speed, it's basically a pretty big time loss because it will take some time until I can get back up to the speed I was on before. Now, like I said, I'm going to the junkyard again, and hopefully I'm getting a good cooling upgrade here. This is not quite what I want, but I'm gonna do a little trick here. I'm gonna buy this block 5, and it's gonna earn me about 8,000 truggers. Because it is a bit damaged, and I'm trading in my healthy block 6 for it, which means I can afford anything I want now. So I'm also gonna buy turning and acceleration here. Sure, I have my droids, and now I have still 4,000 left for cooling, and that should be enough for any cooling upgrade I find. I just want a dual or a turbo coolant bumpy. Oh no, I accidentally started race. Not a big deal, I'm gonna buy cooling later then. I already have some cooling now, so that's fine. So this is Smaller Star 100. This is one of 2 tracks in the game which is based on an actual real-life circuit. So if you compare the track layout you see in the track selection screen to the track layout of Sonoma Raceway, you will realize that it's a carbon copy essentially, which is really cool. And this track also is defined very much by one particular corner, which I'm actually approaching right now, and we call it the D hairpin. It's a very tight 180 corner. And in this setting, I actually brake for it in the 100% skip setting. If you would watch this, if you would watch the IL or the track record for this track, you would actually be able to see this hairpin done without any braking at all. It's quite sight. But yeah, since I'm on a pod that has a very bad turning and I don't even have a good turning upgrade yet, I actually need to brake for this hairpin to make it through it. And that's one of the very few instances in this entire run where you actually see me use the brake. Generally, you don't want to brake in this game like ever. You would just want to keep your speed. But there's some turns where it's actually unavoidable. And this hairpin is one of them. Now here's also the first instance of me lapping the AI. and this can be quite dangerous because they actually try to actively get in your way, and if I were to hit any of those while boosting, I would almost certainly blow up. So it's very dangerous to let the AI. Now that was M100 as we call it. And now after I get the cooling I want, which is not this one, we're gonna head to the most difficult track in the first circuit. It's called the Vengeance. And it might have something that some of you might remember. Like this game back in the day, or recently, which we call the gravity tubes, or the UV4 tubes. I'm gonna get into how they work in a bit when I get my upgrade. Like I said, this is RNG, so there's a 1 in 5 chance that I get the exact part I want, but I can reroll what is in here by going to the vehicle select screen and selecting my vehicle again. Getting a bit unlucky, but it shouldn't take very long. Now there's a 1 in 5 chance to actually get the specific upgrade I want, however, it can be in any health condition. So early on, the chance is actually much less than 1 in 5 because I only can afford very specific health conditions. However, this is perfect. This is exactly what I want. The best cooling upgrade in the game. Now I'm gonna check if I can afford better turning as well, which I can't. Just gonna check acceleration. Oh, actually, I'm gonna improvise again, buy the block 6 again. That way I can afford this. And I can probably also afford better acceleration, but there is no better acceleration. So I'm just gonna go. So I'm basically done now with buying upgrades. I have everything I want, everything I need. From here on I'm just gonna keep going. I don't have to visit the junkyard again. And the run is also slowly gonna pick up in intensity and in difficulty. So right now, like I said before, I'm still in the amateur circuit, which is the first circuit in the game. And it has by far the easiest tracks in the entire game. Although this one is the hardest of those. This one is the most difficult in the amateur circuit, but the tracks that come later on are going to be much, much more difficult than any of the ones you've seen by now. Now, what I'm in right now is the gravity tube I mentioned earlier, and what happens is the game locks you essentially in the middle of this tube, and you only have very limited turning ability while in here, and you need to dodge some of the rocks. So for most players that want to pick up this game as a speedrun or try to speedrun one of these tracks right here, it is an absolute nightmare to navigate through these gravity tubes because you're locked in the middle and your orientation sometimes gets thrown around. So it is quite difficult to have a good pattern to dodge all of these rocks. But once you actually develop such a pattern, once you have a solid method of getting through these tubes, they tend to become the easiest part of the track, actually, because you only have to dodge the obstacles. You don't have to pay attention to your line or to not hitting walls. You just have to dodge the obstacles, which are always at the same spot. So if you enter the tube in the same orientation, usually it's pretty safe, actually. It can still go wrong, obviously, if you make a mistake, but in general, I would say once you have a good pattern of dodging these rocks, it's actually pretty chill to go through these tubes. It's kind of a little bit of a downtime, actually. But yeah, it definitely takes a while until you can get to a point where you're comfortable enough with your method of getting through there. Now this is also the second last track in the amateur circuit. After the last track, I'm actually gonna switch my pod again. And I'm also gonna restart the game because there's a little podium cutscene. And it's a bit quicker to just restart the game than to watch it. Now this little, well, it's not very little, but the laser beam you just saw me dodge, it has some interesting properties, because if you touch it, you blow up, and even if you would enable invincibility, you would still blow up if you touch it, which is kind of funny. Now that was Vengeance, and now we're going to the last track. Which is called Spice Mine Run, and it's a bit longer than Vengeance, but it is considerably easier. It doesn't have that many tight turns. And even though I'm saying this is considerably easier, I can still easily crash on any of these corners, because like mentioned before, optimally in this game, you want to take as tight lines as possible. So you want to essentially kiss every apex you go through. Go as close to any apex of any corner as you can. And that means you take a lot of risk for very minimal reward. So by trying to get as close as I can to any of the apexes, I'm also getting as close as I can to any of these walls. And if I touch any of these walls, I'm probably gonna crash, and that costs me about 4 to 6 seconds, depending on the exact circumstances of the crash. So by trying to save mere tenths, or in some cases even just hundredths of a second, I can easily lose 5 or 6 seconds if I overdo it. So this is also kind of the appeal of this game. It has an incredibly high skill ceiling, because you can always go that little bit tighter on any given corner. But it also means that you're that much closer to just crashing and ending your run, at least in time trials or ILs. Obviously in a real-time attack setting like this, in a 100% run, I would never reset over one crash or even multiple crashes. But if I would be doing time trials, any crash just means a reset. Even just going right on a particular corner would mean a reset for me. So yeah, it's pretty fun, honestly. Not the resetting itself, but taking these corners as tight as you can, taking really good lines through the corners, basically being an inch away from death every time you go through a corner. It's quite thrilling, especially on PB paves. Obviously in a 100% setting, I will play a bit more conservative. I'm not gonna take every corner as tight as I can, because I would just be crashing over and over again, which in the long run is not worth it at all, because this run takes a little bit under 90 minutes. And I'm lapping the AI again. Hopefully it's gonna go well and I'm not gonna hit any of those, or rather they are not gonna hit me, because like I said, they try to get in my way. They actively try to block me and try to crash me that way. At least sometimes, not all the time, but they can easily catch you off guard and make you crash. Now right here you can see me kind of spamming the boost a bit, and that's because I'm trying to maintain high heat, so I can be on the highest possible heat I can be on at the finish line, which I want to try to do on every single track. So every time I cross the line, I want to be on as high heat as I can. And that was pretty good heat considering. Now, here's the podium cutscene. I'm just gonna Alt F4 out of the game and restart the game. And then I'm gonna move on to the semi-pro circuit. Oh, wait, that's the wrong file. Now, like I said before, I'm gonna switch it again, and then I'm going to Sunken City. This pod is owned by Mars.Go, and this pod is actually quite amazing. It's essentially just as fast as the pod I used before, but it actually has really good handling. And it also has decent acceleration. It still has pretty bad repair, but that doesn't matter too much. The only real downside of this pod is its enormous hitbox. So taking tight corridors like the one I'm approaching right now, which is a very infamous shortcut, is pretty difficult. Because the pod is almost as wide as the track you're on. So it's very easy to just nick a corner and crash. Or nick the edge of the wall and just crash. But yeah, it went pretty well. I have to go through that shortcut 2 more times though. On this track at least. Now this guy right here also has the longest boost in the game. So he's essentially, you could say, the best all-rounder in the game. Any pod that is faster than him has considerably worse handling. And there's only a handful of pods that can actually be faster than him because of the speedrun boosting. And even those pods are not much faster than him. It's only like a very small margin, essentially. I'm approaching the shortcut again. Hopefully it goes as well as on the first try. I hit the edge of the wall, but I didn't blow up, so it's all good. Sometimes you get lucky. Usually that would mean a certain crash, but yeah. Sometimes the game decides, it's fine. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in chat. I will try to answer them to the best of my ability. One thing you might have noticed though is, I said at the beginning this is 100% run, including skips and upgrades, right? And so far you've only seen one skip at the very start. You might think, hey, maybe this game doesn't have that many skips. Well, the thing is, most of the skips in this run are actually pegged towards the end game. So, as the second half of this run starts, there's going to be a lot more skips and a lot more difficult tracks actually. And there we go. The AI killed me. And it killed me at the worst possible spot because it gives me a really bad respawn here. But yeah, finally an example of the AI being very dangerous to lab. And I'm actually intentionally going to cancel my boost to overtake those two AIs, so the same thing doesn't happen again. Same here. And I'm actually lapping the entire field. Overall, pretty solid Sunken City. And now we're moving on to Howler Gorge. And this is very much the calm before the storm. After this there's 2 more tracks that are pretty chill compared to what comes after it. And after those 2 tracks the run really starts to take off, because there's difficult track upon difficult track right after each other. There's essentially no real break anymore. So there's, in all of the tracks coming in the second half of this run. There's either a skip or the track itself is really difficult. And you might say, hey acE, why don't you do these tracks first then, right? If they're so difficult. Well, it would be slower. That's a simple explanation. Because of the junkyard route I take early on. By doing these very simple and short tracks early on, I'm able to visit the junkyard multiple times in a very short span, in a very short time span, which means I can be on really good upgrades after a very short time already. If I were to start in any other circuit, and here's another crash. If I were to start in any other circuit, it would take me much longer to actually get to these good upgrades. Now this shortcut I actually crashed on is what we call the 10 shortcut. And it's pretty notorious for being quite difficult to take and very easy to crash on, especially with Mars because he has such a big hitbox. And if you like Bullseye, you're gonna see him later on in this run. Because while in time trials, for the vast majority of tracks, Ben Quadinaros is by far the best spot. There's 2 tracks in this game where Bullseye is the best. And, well, I have to do both of them because it's this 100%. And crashed again on the 10th entry. Yeah, it's pretty difficult. I'm not surprised this happens. Now I said Ben is the best spot in the game, right? And then you might be asking, why aren't you using Ben then? Well, that is because I can only unlock Ben at the very, very end of this run. I'm actually unlocking him as early as I can, which is the 4th to last track in the run. It's impossible to unlock him earlier, since I'm starting on a fresh save file for this run. I'm essentially starting from scratch. And due to how this game is structured and how you unlock Ben, it's not possible to unlock him earlier. So that's why I'm sticking to this guy here for the majority of the run. I'm gonna take the fancy slot line here, which is the best line, but it doesn't save much and it's pretty risky, but well, gotta show off a bit, right? So, now we come to Duck Derby, and here this track has a few interesting things. The first thing is it has the second skip in the run. It's a very, very, very small skip, but it's a skip nonetheless, and it's right here. Just cutting this corner a bit. And the second interesting thing is this is the other track that is modeled after a real life circuit. And this one is modeled after Laguna Seca. And once again, if you would compare the track layout of this track with the track layout of Laguna Seca, it's essentially a carbon copy. Now to answer a question in chat, why is Ben the best? I assume you mean Ben. That is very simple to answer, and that's because his boost speed is by far the highest in the entire game. Ben gets 400 added speed units while boosting, and there's no pod that comes close to that. Mars Go, the pod I'm using right now, gets 300 added speed while boosting. So Ben's boost is essentially 33% better than this. The boost of this guy right here. Also, while this skip is pretty cool, it looks pretty nice, it is nothing compared to what's coming. So there's one more track that is pretty chill, which is this one, Scrapper's Run. And after that, it's gonna get really interesting. Even though there's a small trick, I'm gonna try here as well. It's just a very small corner cut essentially. So I'm trying to ride this wall and launch over this corner. Hardly saving any time at all, by the way. But it looks pretty cool. And it's also actually not considered a skip. If you're interested how we define skips, how the community defines skips, we actually have a clear definition of what constitutes a skip. If you want to check that out, I would recommend looking it up on speedrun.com. It's a bit too much for me to go into during this run. But we very much have a very clear definition of how we class if something is a skip or not. And this right here is not a skip. And it can go wrong very easily, as you just saw. This is why I usually don't do this in PB attempts, because it saves maybe 2 to 3 tenths per lap. But if that happens, if you blow up, well, you lose multiple seconds. So, yeah. Probably not worth the risk, in 100%. But I don't learn from my mistakes, so I'm gonna try again. Hey, it worked. So, now the calm is over and the storm starts. We're going to Zaga Challenge. And this track actually has 3 skips per lap. And 2 of them are very, very difficult to get. Because, first of all, it's very difficult to get the first one. And the second one comes right after the first one. It is also quite difficult to get. But this right there was a good example of me trying to take a really good line through a corner and paying the price for it. This is essentially acE in a nutshell. Trying to go as close to the epics as you can and just crashing all the time. So, after this trade I'm gonna go on to the lower path of the track, which is right here. It's kinda hidden, but from here I can access the first skip, which is coming up after the next left turn, right here. And I'm clipping out of bounds, flying onto the lower part of the track, and that was the first skip. The second skip I already missed. I attempted it, you might have not noticed, but it comes right after I land. But it's very, very difficult to get it after getting the first skip. So hopefully I can show it off on the second lap. The third skip of the lap comes at the very end. And while it looks the most impressive and definitely the most confusing, it is the easiest of the 3. And I'm gonna show it off here on lap 1. I'm not gonna explain it until next lap. So for now I'm just gonna leave you in confusion. I didn't mean to crash, but yeah. I essentially ended the lap without even going close to the finish line. It's kind of funny. And I'm gonna explain that the next time I come here. For now I'm gonna focus on getting both of these upcoming scripts. And not only one of them. Also, excuse me if I'm missing anything in chat, but for some reason my Twitch chat keeps disconnecting. So if you asked anything and I ignored you, I probably didn't see it. Here we go again, and I missed it. Okay, this time I missed the first skip. I clipped back up again, but I can still attempt the second skip. So let's hope I will be able to do it. I wasn't. So I get one more try next lap. It's very difficult. I think I've never been able to get all 3 skips on all 3 laps in any 100% attempt I did. But now I can explain this right here. If the dozer isn't in my way, which it is. Well, that is unfortunate. Because now... Okay, I still made it up here. So, currently I'm in the last zone of the track. And this game doesn't really have a finish line. But the way it tracks how you complete a lap is it checks if you go from the last zone of the track to the first zone of the track. And it just so happens that by going out of bounds, flying over the void and landing on the part that I landed on, I'm actually landing close to the end of zone 1. And once I cross a very specific point, I'm actually crossing over from the last zone of the track to the first zone of the track. And that is why this skip actually works. Here we go again. I got the first one. Let's hope I get this one. I didn't. You know what? I have some leeway here, because I'm so much ahead of the AI. I really want to show you this skip. I'm just gonna try again. And I missed it again. Ah, that's unfortunate. Essentially what I was trying to do, I was trying to ride up this wall, go out of bounds and skip this entire section right here, and land about right here again. It looks pretty cool. It's unfortunate that I didn't get it. But it wouldn't be in the spirit of speedrunning to waste even more time on it, right? So. Anyway, I'm gonna do this skip again here. And this time I'm not turning around, but I'm just flying straight into the first zone, therefore triggering the end of the track. And now onto Baru Coast, which is one of the hardest tracks in the game. Yeah, there is a few skips that I will not even attempt, because the risk reward wouldn't be worth it. So there's a skip on Adobe Mountain Run in the Galactic Circuit that saves about 2 to 3 seconds per lap, but it's way too risky to even attempt it. And there's also a skip on Defer's Revenge, which is also in the Galactic Circuit, and it saves less than a second per lap. And it's also way too risky to even attempt it. On top of that, in the very last circuit, the Invitational Circuit, there's a track called the Gauntlet. And the Gauntlet has multiple variants of a very large skip. And the fastest of those variants are extremely risky. And I would only be attempting them if I knew I had to PB. So I would not try it on really good pace. I would just go for the safe method. So yeah, there's a bunch of skips that are definitely too risky to even try in this setting. I can try to show you one of them on Adobe Mountain Run, just for the sake of it, but it's probably gonna go wrong. And yeah, this track with Mask Blue is actually not that difficult. I mean, it's still very difficult, but it only becomes really difficult once you try to use a Ben here. Then this track becomes nightmarish. And well, that can happen sometimes. So generally these walls in this section are quite lenient. You can like touch them and grind them a bit. But sometimes the game just says nope and crashes you like it did right there. And again, wow, that's a lot of crashes. It's pretty common though, like I said. Going crashless in a 100% run is virtually impossible. I mean, you could try by just going extremely slow, but it wouldn't pay off. If you don't take any risks at all and you don't boost a lot, yeah, you can probably get a deathless run, but you will be slower than someone who takes a lot of risks and crashes a few times. Now, after this track, that's probably the biggest run killer in the entire run. It's called the Bumpy Breaker skip. And it's one of the oldest skips in this game. At least it's the general concept. There has been a slightly different variant found of it recently, in the last year. But the concept is still the same. And it saves a huge amount of time. It saves about 45 seconds per lap. So overall you can save 2 minutes, more than 2 minutes, by doing this skip 3 times. However, there's a problem. And the problem is, this skip is one try and one try only. There's no backup. You have one try per lap, and if you don't make it, well, you have to do the track normally, so you lose 45 seconds. So on a PB attempt, failing the skip on any of the 3 laps would probably mean the run is dead, regardless of the pace I'm on. Now I'm actually gonna switch pot for this skip, because contrary to most tracks, Mars is actually pretty bad at doing this skip. It comes near the very start, so after this straight, I'm gonna try to ride a wall right here. It's gonna be close, and I made it over. Okay. Whew. If I didn't make it onto the track, if I would have fallen below the track, I would have respawned where I came from, and I wouldn't have been able to try again. So I just about made it. That was way too close for comfort. But yeah, I'm gonna try to do this 3 times. Normally this lap would be would be about 1 minute and 40. But yeah, not if I do the skip. Pardon me. But yeah, less than a minute, and I'm gonna try again. Whoa, made it again, but very close again. Almost didn't make it. But it's fine. As long as I make it over, it's good. Oh yeah, so the refresh rate or the frames per second in this game affect a few things. They affect your handling and a few other minor things, but for the most part, the easiest way to think about this is higher FPS works kind of the same way as higher traction would, a higher traction upgrade. So by adjusting your FPS in this game, you can essentially fine-tune your handling. And I'm gonna go into detail about that after the skip. Alright, very nice. 3 out of 3. So, in ILs, or time trials, like we call it, we generally adjust our FPS in a range between 24 and 60 FPS, which is the legal FPS range for speedruns in this game. And we do that to fine-tune our handling, essentially. Now, in this run, since it's an RTA run, I cannot change, it is not allowed for me to change my refresh rate during the run, so I have to stick to a single refresh rate or FPS during the entire run. And I'm using 60 FPS here, so the maximum, which is for the simple reason that most skips work best on 60. Anyway, that was the semi-pro circuit. Now we come to the hardest circuit of the run, galactic circuit. Now I'm gonna switch back to Mars Crew. And then I'm gonna start an executioner. And this already has a skip. It's a pretty cool looking skip, I would say. It saves less time than it looks. Saves about, in this setting, saves about 5 seconds per lap, which definitely is a nice amount of time, but it looks even bigger than 5 seconds. So normally, after this long section right here, I would enter a gravity tube again, but that's not fast enough, so I'm gonna skip that gravity tube by riding up this wall, launching from here over this fence into this huge funnel-like structure and landing down here. So I essentially skipped the entire gravity tube by doing this, and it's saved about 5 seconds. Here's another gravity tube. This one is pretty trivial though, I don't even have to do any input tuning it. Just forces me into the middle of the tube and essentially downtime for me, which is very rare in this run actually. There's not a lot of downtime at all. Well, this wouldn't be legal if I would be running the no skips category, but I'm running the skips category, so this I can essentially do whatever I want. Which is what I like, at least for real-time attack. While doing ILs or time pulse, I actually prefer to do the no skip versions, but for 100% I very much prefer doing skips. So like I said before, this circuit right here that I just started, it's called the Galactic Circuit, and it's by far the hardest circuit in the game. There's a ton of very, very difficult tracks. Actually, 3 out of the 4 hardest tracks in the game are in this circuit. And I'm gonna have to do all of them. That's just 100%. And there's also a bunch of skips on these tracks. Well, actually, that's not entirely true. The only skip I'm gonna do in the upcoming tracks is gonna be on the last one in the Galactic Circuit. But technically there would be skips on Defor's Revenge and Adobe Mountain Run as well. But they, like I explained earlier, are actually not worth the risk for the little time they save. Because they have very, very high possibility of going wrong. Yeah, the rock, the huge rock up there, it's not real. But it's one of the many instances in this game where the visual doesn't really match up with the collision mesh. So I can just go right through it. And, well, gotta cut the devs some slack. I don't think they expected anyone to jump over that fence and just skip the entire gravity tube, so they didn't bother with giving that rock any collision. It's understandable. Now here's the Bulba's Legacy. This is the shortest track in the Galactic Circuit, but it's not the easiest. It's actually pretty difficult to do. It looks simple enough, but holding your boost through these corners, being on high enough feet through the entirety of this track is quite difficult to do. And there's also this trick right here at the end, which used to be considered a skip, this right here. But since we have the skip definition, this no longer falls under the skip category. It's legal to do even if you do no skip runs. If you're curious why, again I would refer you to the definition on speedrun.com. And here we go again. It's actually quite tricky to do. It's very easy to blow up trying to do it. And here's another instance of lapping the AI. So far the AI was rather kind to me in this run. I think they only blew me up once, which is fine. I've had worse. One more time. Pretty clean so far. I shouldn't have said that. Alright, it's fine. Here we go. That's a pretty good Suburbus legacy. And now, well, now I'm gonna do the hardest track in the game.
Welcome to Otto's shop, huh? Take a look around.
And it's called Grapevine Gateway. And this is, well, it's extremely difficult. And it's probably pretty self-explanatory why. And this is also one of the two tracks where I'm using Bullseye. Because Bullseye has the best handling in the entire game, while still having a really good boost. Well, this track is extremely windy and it has actually two sections where I'm forced to brake, which you haven't seen since the amateur circuit actually braking. But yeah, I will have to do it on this track and I will actually have to brake really early here because I'm on stock brakes. Usually I would have upgraded brakes here, but in 100% it's not really worth getting them. So I have to brake slightly early during the section right here and also during the shortcut section that comes up during the second lap. Because there's a shortcut on this track that only opens up on lap 2. So you can only take it on lap 2 and 3. And I'm going to show you once I arrive there. So it's coming up after this long downhill section right here. I'm gonna go left like I did on lap 1 and then I'm gonna do a hard right turn. Right here. It's very hard to spot this shortcut if you don't know it's there actually. It doesn't save too much time, it saves about 2 seconds per lap. But obviously it's worth doing. It's one of the harder shortcuts in this game though. But this entire track is actually just absolutely brutal. It's very easy to make a mistake here and just crash like I did. I definitely recommend checking out the IL for this game, the time trial record. For this track, I mean. Because, well, it's actually quite insane to see what is possible on this track if you push it. And we've actually pushed this track pretty far in the recent weeks. There has been some competition going on. It was very fun. Now going for the shortcut again. And I overshot it a bit, but it's fine. Yeah, overall, I would have hoped this would have been a bit cleaner, but hey, it's Grapevine Gateway. I can't expect too much. After all, it's the hardest trick in the game. I'm going back to Moscow or Adobe Mountain Run. Now, like I said earlier, this track technically has a skip, which would save 2 to 3 seconds per lap, but it is extremely inconsistent with Mars Go, or any pod I could use here right now. That would make sense. So, usually I wouldn't go for it, but I can attempt it once, just so you can get the general idea of what it would look like, but it's probably gonna go horribly wrong. So right here, I would go up the slope, launch out of bounds here, and try to land over there, but, well, I already missed it. But you got the idea. Oh, I wanted to show. Now this section is what we call the canyon, and you can actually go through here without braking at all, which I will attempt on the second lap. Yeah, I wouldn't even go for this in PB attempts. I only try to show you guys the idea, essentially. And it doesn't even save that much time, so yeah. No, I'm not gonna try it again, just so I can show off the fast canyon, the no brake canyon, hopefully. Here we go. So I took this entire section with full speed essentially, and it's quite fun to do. And it even works with Ben. After you might have noticed, this first bit of the track looks kind of familiar, and that's because, well, it is. This is the same first half as Howler Gorge. So Howler Gorge and Adobe Mountain Run share the first half of the track. It's exactly the same. The only deviation starts right after this ice field. So in Howler Gorge I would go up here, but here on Adobe Mountain Run I go through this tunnel towards the ice canyon section. But it happens sometimes if you try to set up the fast canyon. That's a shame, but not that bad. Already crashed plenty in this run, so it happens. It's inevitable for the most part. to crash at least, sometimes. Now here's the easiest track in the Galactic Circuit, and the easiest of the remaining tracks probably. And this one also technically would have a skip, but it's a skip that would save less than a second, and it's almost impossible to actually do with mass. So, well, I'm not going for it. I can't even show you what it would look like, because like I said, it's almost impossible to even do with mass, so yeah. If you want to see it, check out the DIL. Which you can find on Speedrun.com. You're curious. Now after this, there's 6 tracks left. One of them is probably the second or third hardest track in the game. It's essentially the big brother of Gapway and Gateway. It's a bit longer, but a bit easier. The remaining 5 tracks all have skips. And 4 of them have really big skips actually. One of them is a small one, but yeah. It's gonna be pretty entertaining. The end of this run is very hype, in my opinion. And among those last 6 tracks is actually the track from the film episode 1, The Phantom Menace. The Boonta If Classic. And here's a good example again of me trying to be as high heat as I can, approaching the end of the track, so I can be full heat at the very end. Another thing that I want to say is, at the very end of this lap, there's gonna be a little trick I'm gonna do, which saves about 3/10, but it looks pretty cool in my opinion. One of my favorite little tricks to do in this game, so normally I would just land here, but no. I'm gonna fall down intentionally and fly over the line. And here's Fireman Rally, the big brother of Grab and Gateway. Almost as hard and a bit longer. This track is the longest in the game, time-wise. So, for the time it takes to complete this track is the longest of any tracks in this game. It will take over 5 minutes. And it is very difficult. There's a lot of tight sections. There's sections where I have to brake, like the one right here. And there's a lot of track paths that are shared with Grab and Gateway actually, the hardest track in the game that I did earlier. But I will do them in reverse, so it's not quite the same. And yeah, once I'm done with this track, the last 5 tracks all have pretty big skips on them. Most of them look really cool. So this is very much the end game. And yeah, it's probably the most difficult part of the entire run. The entire Galactic Circuit and all of the skips in the end. It's very tricky. That's a solid first lap. And the sections where I have to brake, again I have to brake a bit early, well quite a bit early, because I'm on stock brakes. Usually I would be on maximum brakes here, which helps a little bit in these sections, but it doesn't help enough to warrant me actually getting brakes in this run. And yeah, this is the second of the two tracks where Bullseye is actually optimal. On all of the other tracks, Ben would be better. Or even Mars, the one I used for the most part of this run. And that's another very good example of me taking a lot of risk, probably more than I should, and paying the price for it. Just by trying to take that corner a little bit too tight. Now here's the grapevine shortcut, but in reverse. Yeah, gotta go fast, that's right. Now one thing I haven't explained so far is, you probably saw it a lot already during this run. While I'm boosting, I'm actually tilting my pod to the side. And that is for the simple reason that tilting the pod to the side essentially just reduces my hitbox. Right, I'm a bit narrower like this. And I'm only doing this while boosting for a particular reason. Usually if I do this while not boosting, my turn rate gets a huge penalty. But this penalty modifier, this turn rate modifier, actually gets overwritten by the natural turn rate modifier that boosting gives you, which also lowers your turn rate. So tilting your pod to the side while boosting has no downside, because you lose the turn rate anyway, and it doesn't add up, but it overrides the other modifiers. So that's why you see me tilt to the side like this almost all the time while boosting, because yeah, it has no downside. It just makes my hitbox narrower, which is obviously a good thing, because it makes it easier to avoid obstacles. Now, here's the Boontape Classic. It's the track from the film. And it's actually very accurate. You compare what is shown in the film to the track layout. They did a pretty good job of replicating the sections. Very true to the film. And yeah, this track also has a skip, which is actually coming up after this section right here. And it is kind of tricky to get. Yeah, okay. I missed the boost, so I can only go for the backup straight here, which I'm even gonna... okay, I got the backup. This was about half of the skip. So usually I want to jump over the entire canyon, but since I lost my boost on the slope, I could only do the backup version. I'm gonna try to do the actual version on the next 2 laps. Now here's the Tusken Raider area, so the flames you see right there are supposed to be the shots of the Tusken Raider. And they're actually incredibly dangerous, and they're also RNG. If they hit you with a flame, first of all your engines catch fire, and second of all it throws you off your line. It's very, very dangerous, especially combined with the Java crawler obstacle that is on a global cycle and moves around the track. So on lap 2 and 3 it is actually pretty common that if you get hit by a flame close to the Java crawler, it throws you right into it and crashes you. I missed the service ramp here, which is the optimal route, but I can do this backup right here. And let's go for it again. Hopefully get it this time. Nope. Missed it again. Oh. Going for the backup again. And I crashed while entering. That's okay though. I'm probably gonna go for the old method on lap 3 just to show off the entire skip once. Thing is, I cannot lose my boost. If I lose my boost, I cannot do the big skip. And here's the Tusken Raiders again. I didn't get hit. But they also shoot in the later part here, near the crawler. So right there was a flame, and there you can see the crawler. So a lot of the times you get hit by a flame around here, and it essentially takes away the control you have over the pod and throws you into the crawler. So it's very annoying. Especially on IL attempts, if you get hit on lap 3, you essentially spend 4 minutes just to lose the run to IMG. It can be quite frustrating. Ah no, that's also very costly, because usually I would do what I did on lap 1 and cut across to the right here with big jump, but I lost boost again, so I can't do it. Right, I'm gonna go for the old method here, which is slightly more reliable, but let's see. Okay, this looks good. Yeah, here we go. This is a full skip. And another crash by bouncing up. Happens sometimes, but hey. I just wanted to show the full skip. But the flames were actually pretty kind this run. They didn't hit me at all. And well, this is the end of the Galactic Circuit. After this I'm going to reset my game again. And then we're on to the last 4 tracks, which all have skips. For the last 4 tracks, if I do them correctly, will be over in less than 7 minutes. Even though only one of them is even supposed to take 5 minutes. But well, there's huge skips on them, so it's not gonna take that long. So the first one I'm gonna do is Inferno. This is where I'm gonna unlock Bank Cardinalis. And this will be over very quickly, so don't blink. First of all, I'm riding up this wall, jumping over here, saving approximately 10 seconds. Braking right here, turning around, riding up this wall while not crashing, jumping over here, staying on the ceiling, ending the lap, going over here and doing the same thing again. And now in lap 3 I'm actually going to try to do what is called the fast lap setup. I'm going to stay on the ceiling, hopefully... Nah, okay, it didn't quite make it. I was supposed to clip through the wall and end the lap immediately, but... it's very inconsistent, so I'm just gonna do the normal way again. And it's over. Now onto the gauntlet. And this track has, like I explained earlier, a few different variants of a very specific skip. The first one I'm gonna show off is the fastest one. It's very unreliable though, it's one of the most unreliable and inconsistent skips in this game. So I might take a few times to actually get this. This one is a great example of how easy it is to crash. Anyway, I'm turning around here, aiming for this rock, boosting into it. Not supposed to crash though. So let's try again. So, no. Yeah, okay. Well, I probably should have tried this on lap 2, so the AI isn't in my way if I break it up. Please don't hit me. Yeah. I'm just trying to show off how dangerous the AI is. Don't mind me. And here we go. So, I didn't quite make it. You get the idea. Unfortunately, this fence extends a bit higher up than it looks. This should work, yes. Here we go. But I missed the track. This is so unfortunate. And I respawn back here. You get the idea though. And this saves about 50 seconds, by the way. But you can see how inconsistent this is. So I'm just gonna go for the old school version. The version that has been done for over a decade now. And this is much easier. Just riding up here. And landing over here on this track. And I'm first again. This saves about 45 seconds, a bit less. So doing the more inconsistent version only saves about, I want to say, 6 to 7 seconds over the safe version. But obviously it adds up if you do it multiple times. Now there's another variant, which I'm going to try to show off on this lap. Which is probably the most inconsistent of all of them. And it's the second fastest. It's a bit slower than the first one I showed. And essentially I'm just trying to smack my face into this rock right here. I'm not supposed to crash, but what I was trying to do is survive, bounce off the rock and fly over the fence again. But like I said, it's extremely inconsistent and it has a very low success rate. Which you would expect as an outcome by smashing your face into a rock. Usually it turns out pretty badly. I will try again though. I will try again, because it looks pretty cool when it actually works. It's a lot of crashes. And even though the AI just overtook me, well, they already leapt, so... Let's try again. And it didn't work. Alright, let's try the big one again. Let's see if I can land it. Am I not high enough? Come on, I want to work this at least to work once. I'm not high enough again. Almost though. Just need a little bit more height for this to work. Luckily the AI is almost a lap behind, so to worry about them overtaking me. But it's a good example of just how inconsistent this is. Alright, one more time. One more try. And it didn't work. Okay. I'm gonna go for the old school setup again. Just to finish this track. If everything goes right on this track, you can finish this in 2 minutes and 30 seconds. But yeah, I wanted to show you guys all of the different skips. Or at least, well, the idea behind them. Now, next track is Abyss. Abyss might be the most infamous track of this entire game. A lot of people might remember this track because it punishes you heavily for falling off the top of the track. And personally, I couldn't even finish this track as a kid. I couldn't even win it because I kept falling off. But you can cheat the track and make this very trivial. So I like calling this taking revenge for all the poor souls who suffered here as a kid by just completely taking this track apart and making it pay for its mean design by finishing it in less than 30 seconds. And now, for the final track of the game, I'm actually gonna use Banqueting Arrows, the fastest pod in the game. This track also has a skip. It's not as big as the ones you've seen in the recent tracks though. It still looks pretty cool, but it's also pretty risky to take. It has a high chance of just blowing you up. Pretty precise. So I'm trying to find the right spot here to get a launch and land over here. And I'm flying through a pillar again with no collision, because that's the best line. But you can probably tell just by how fast Ben goes while boosting why he's the best spot in the game. You can see the speed is easily reaching 1k and above. Now there's 2 more laps and then it's gonna be time. So I'm gonna attempt to skip 2 more times obviously, but I already want to thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. And if you're interested in the game, I would recommend to join the community Discord, which you can find on the speedrun.com site. It's an incredible speed game, totally underrated in my opinion. Obviously I'm biased, but it's really fun to do. The sense of speed in this game and the way the handling feels is just incredible, even considering this game is turning 22 in a few days. Alright, one more time, last skip of the run, and it went pretty well. Again, I hope you guys had fun. Thank you very much for watching. It was an honor to start off the Kessel run, and there's much more Star Wars runs to come. So stay tuned for more, and may the Force be with you.